Welcome back to the channel. My name is Kami, and I'm a completionist who reviews every game after 100% trophy completion. Today's game is the finale in Naughty Dog's Jak and Daxter trilogy. I believe Jak 3 combined the best aspects of the previous titles to deliver a satisfying end to the trilogy. However, there are some flaws with this game too, which I'll be discussing. With that all said, allow me to delve into what this game has to offer.
This isn't a game.
Why does it sound like you're leaving out the dangerous parts?
The gameplay of Jak 3 is less of an evolution compared to Jak 2, but rather an addition in the best ways possible. Expanding on the action-oriented design of the previous game, Jak 3 gives us 3 variant guns for each ammo type. Each variant has a unique spread and rate of fire, which makes them all feel useful. Even though I didn't get a lock-on feature, I did get the beam reflector, which is awesome. The gyro buster was okay, just a big ammo waster. The arc wielder was very flashy, and the needle laser was handy for flying enemies. The wave concussor was probably my least favorite of the new weapons. It's handy for when you're getting overwhelmed. The plasmite RPG was pretty awesome though, great for crowd control. The mass inverter was a fun concept, but not really useful for me personally. Arguably, the best was the Supernova, the mini nuke. This thing was just perfect. So why do I mention all the weapons? Well, because a lot of your time will be spent shooting enemies. The precursor eggs sprinkled throughout reward you for your efforts by upgrading the guns. This is a great strategy. I had a great variety of weapons to choose from, and then my sense of exploration was encouraged with upgrades for my favorite weapons. This was highly appreciated. On the flip side, however, was the repeat offense from Jak 2. There is no way to track how many collectibles you have collected in each zone. There is a total counter, but this is really disappointing in my opinion. Whilst I understand the shift was towards action-oriented gameplay, the developers decided to place 600 precursor eggs. I will admit, Jak 3 has less ground to cover than Jak 2, and the eggs are more frequent. However, the fact that I have no way to track this without an IGN guide or an Excel sheet is frankly frustrating. For some people, there's fun in not knowing and scouring every inch of the map. I am not one of those people. I will happily engage with an in-game tracker, like we had in Jak 1, but we didn't, and I missed that. You know what else was highly appreciated though? The checkpoints and health drops, which were similar to Jak 1. Boy, did this make a difference. The fact that I didn't have the underlying stress of repeating entire sections and appropriately placed health drops made such a difference. This was easily the most noticeable difference after playing Jak 2 and 3 back to back. I did die for sure, but not nearly as much because I was able to heal up just enough to push through. Even when I did die, I was surprised to get appropriate checkpoints, which gave me the confidence to keep playing. This was very appreciated. The biggest addition, however, was the introduction of four-wheeled vehicles. This was certainly interesting. In my opinion, they controlled better than the hover vehicles, and they had a drift function, so that addressed my gripes with the previous game's vehicles. This was a great surprise for me. Each vehicle handles differently, jumps at different heights, varies in speed, and has different weapons to choose from. One of my worries initially was the over-reliance on driving, but thankfully that's not the case. I did find those missions to be the most challenging, but that's more to do with the terrain itself, which I'll discuss in a bit. The game brought back Dark Jak, which I barely used. It's not bad, but I really had little use for it. Something I did appreciate, however, is the level design and layout. The platforming was a decent challenge, feeling similar to Jak 1, evoking this almost warm feeling that it wasn't forgotten. Jak 3 expands on the platforming with light powers, which I never used outside of puzzle solving and platforming. The light powers are very underutilized. They're not even bad abilities, but they're very forgettable, since they're treated as puzzle solving utility. I feel as if no area except for the temple needed me to use them. The story of Jak 3 is a mixed bag for me, but more positive than negative. Consistently for 3 games, they nailed Jak and Daxter as the core focus and their relationship. Daxter had less moments in this game compared to Jak 2, but that doesn't mean he was discounted. Character-wise, there are improvements in my eyes. Torn didn't annoy me, which I appreciate, and Ashlyn was barely in the story. For me, this is great because I didn't care for them too much. The issue for me, however, is Samos and Kira had essentially no effect on the story. Compared to Jak 1 and 2, they do nothing but stand there. I forgot they even existed. The antagonists of Jak 3 are split between 3 entities, and I am not a fan. I didn't care for Errol's motivations, but I liked his design. Count Vega felt like a forced villain, considering he wasn't in Jak 2, but he had some great story moments. The final entity I won't go into, but I did appreciate it was linked to the other antagonists, creating a cohesive problem for Jak to deal with. Jak 3's core focus on tying up the trilogy was executed very well. From start to finish, I was invested to see this game to the end. That can be attributed to a great setup in Jak 2 and payoff in Jak 3. I did notice a lot of the BS side missions in Jak 2 were stripped out in favor of pure story progression. This felt far more engaging for me, as the length of the story aligned with the theme of pending doom established in the narrative. If you've seen my previous video, you might remember the open world narrative issue I outlined, where missions present a mini-story which deviates from the main game. Jak 3 doesn't do that, which is great. From an overall narrative structure, I think Jak 3 trimmed the fat and answered most of the questions we had after playing Jak 2. The game's visuals looked identical to Jak 2, in terms of lighting, models, and textures. Nothing is different, so it's really difficult to talk about major changes. That being said, each environment at least had a great level of detail, ensuring that whatever I explored felt handcrafted and meaningful. The UI is tweaked from Jak 2, and it looks cleaner. It still looks a little low res, but that can be attributed to the fact I'm playing a 720p game on a 4K monitor. The cutscenes of this game were always high quality, even for scenes which simply transition to the next stage. I really enjoyed the animation from characters in both cutscenes and gameplay. If there's a critique I really had for the visuals, it would be clipping with Jak's outfit at times, but it's not too distracting. The setting of Jak 3 is a mixed bag for me. The reuse of Haven City was great. Physically exploring the decimated city was engaging. I don't mind the reuse of assets here, since there's clearly a lot of work been implemented to visually alter the environment. The addition of the desert worried me initially, as I was concerned I would be spending a lot of time in an empty area. However, the desert is small enough so that it doesn't feel desolate. The models and landmarks are unique enough to make me feel it's not some copy-paste area. The issue with the desert for me is the interaction with the land vehicles. I found myself flipping and driving on unstable land a lot. This is obviously understandable, since it's a rough terrain. However, combining the unstable ground with these very persistent radar attacks is more than just a distraction when I'm simply trying to get across the map. It makes the setting feel inconvenient to travel across, especially when I have to deal with the sandstorm filter, which is very unappealing. The other settings are great though. The temple looks great with the lighting, the sewer got a redesign which made it interesting to revisit, the mines looked great especially with the lighting and atmosphere. With that being said, it's clear a lot of assets got reused and redesigned. Considering Jak 2 and 3 were released within a year of each other, it's commendable they were able to do this much with the limited time. Audio-wise, the game sounds superb. Frankly, the entire trilogy did. Jak 1 had some effects which sounded bit crushed, but this isn't the case for Jak 3. Soundtrack-wise, I don't feel it was as memorable as Jak 2, but that could be attributed to the fact I didn't spend as much time with this game. Every encounter sounded energizing, especially in tense gameplay sections with action. The sound effects are very appealing to listen to, especially with the new guns. Sound design works best when there's a layer of believability when I'm looking at the visuals. If nothing sounds bad, it adds to the gameplay and further immerses me in the experience. Naughty Dog did an amazing job with the sound. My nitpick of the sounds is the fading of music when transitioning to a new area. It's an instant change which can be a bit jarring, however it's not off-putting. A slight fade would have improved the experience though. That being said, Jak 3 was developed on the PlayStation 2, which had a custom sound engine and chip, So the issue could potentially be the fact that I played on the PlayStation 3 version and not the PlayStation 2 version. Trophy-wise, the game was pretty straightforward. Nearly every trophy was for story completion, with the exception of the collectibles. I already outlined that 600 eggs with no in-game tracker was very annoying. The metalhead eggs are very frequent, so it's almost impossible to miss these. The precursor eggs, however, there is just so many. I'm not a fan of a large amount of collectibles, but it at least allowed me to get some more juice out of the game before my time with the series ended. Jak 3 was an excellent finale to this trilogy. I was very satisfied by the end, and I'm ashamed I didn't play this series earlier in my life. I don't see as many people talk about Jak 3 like the other two games, but don't be mistaken. Jak 3 is awesome. It brought the best out of the previous two games to deliver a spectacular ending. What did you think about Jak 3? I'd love to hear about your thoughts below. Comment any series you think I should delve into next. Thank you for watching, and have a lovely day.